I'm Colleen Stover, and welcome to the Space Policy Show by the Aerospace Corporation. Today is episode 109. What's it like living on Mars? The Mars Desert Research Station is in Utah. It's operated by the Mars Society, and they help conduct science and research to better understand human space exploration. So on today's show, we have a team of analog astronauts from the Aerospace Corporation, and they're getting ready to enter the facility without external contact for a period of time to perform certain experiments and gather research. So we're pleased to have Barbara Braun, Kristine Ferrone, Allison Taylor, Trevor Jahn, and also Ashley Kowalski, who was previously on the show to talk about her analog mission at the Sirius facility in Russia in 2021. So be sure to check out episode 75 if you want to hear more about that long duration spaceflight experiment on an international team, actually. So now over to our current analog mission team to learn more about MDRS.
Thank you, Colleen. As Colleen said, I'm here with Kristine. Hi, Kristine. Hi, Allison. Allie Taylor, our XO, and hi, Trevor. Good to have you on. Okay, first, Kristine, as the commanding officer, why don't you tell us what is the Mars Desert Research Station and what will we all be doing there?
Fantastic, thanks, Barbara. The Mars Desert Research Station is an analog Mars facility that's in the Utah area of the United States. It was built around 2001 by the Mars Society. It's a nonprofit organization that supports exploration of Mars and such activities. And the Mars Desert Research Station we'll be crew number 269. So there's been many crews from all over the world, academic crews. We've had professional crews. We've had mixture of international and US crew. They've had all sorts of different types of research done, various experiments. And so we'll be participating in a 2-week mission. It'll be coming up here in the end of November and through the beginning of December.
And Allie, you're our executive officer. Anything to add to what Kristine just told us? And why is the Aerospace Corporation doing this?
Right, definitely. Human exploration and the challenges involving that, going to Mars and other destinations. I think aerospace is uniquely positioned to solve those hard challenges. We work directly with government and industry as an FFRDC. So I think this is an excellent area for us to grow our skills and help support this type of activity into the future. We have a lot of different technical staff and experts in a lot of different areas. So leveraging those, but also getting direct hands-on experience with field work is something that we're really excited about.
That is great. And Trevor, tell us a little bit about your role in this mission and the exciting stuff you're going to be doing.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. So I'm the technology officer for the mission. I'll be making sure that Project Phantom and the Mirror demo, along with Ashley, go off without a hitch. So we've got a couple of EVAs that are going to happen on the mission, and I've got a couple of different hardware demos that I'm responsible for.
That's right. We have several extravehicular activities planned for this mission. It's going to be kind of a busy set of days. I wanted to, you mentioned Ashley Kowalski. She's also a member of our crew right here, and she's actually no stranger to analog missions. And Colleen had a chance to sit down and talk with Ashley about her past experience in the mission she just came back from and how she expects it to be the same or different for this Mars Desert Research Station crew.
Yes, that's right. We've got Ashley Kowalski here. You're returning to the show. Thanks so much for coming back for a moment.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Yeah. Well, the last time we had you on the show, it was episode number 75, and it was almost a year ago exactly, November 2021. And you were getting ready to go into the Sirius 21 analog mission in Russia at the time. And we were talking to you about that and what expectations you had. And just really quickly, how was it? What happened? What was it like? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it was a really great experience. So all of the experiments that we did while in isolation, they were all studies on the actual human body. So we were doing them on ourselves. So, for example, like once a week, I had to do an EEG on myself, or once a month, we would do a virtual reality docking simulation. Or, we would take different blood samples at different times a month, or do different physical fitness tests with VO2 masks and electrodes all over our bodies to track, cardiac measures and our respiratory system measures and things like that. We had sleep deprivation studies. It was a lot of different experiments. So I learned so much about, how, biomedical and biological researchers conduct these kind of studies and why they're important, and basically how we can learn from doing these kind of long duration isolation missions, how we learn about the human body in these situations. So I learned so much about, this type of research, and it was a really great time overall.
Yeah, well, imagine, if we're sending people to, other parts of the solar system, they're going to be together for long periods of time, not just things happening to their own body being in space, but also psychologically, because you were actually in an international group of analog astronauts. And so that must have been really cool.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. So we had 2 Russians, 2 Americans, and 1 Emirati crewmate. Yeah, we had to navigate through cultural differences, different mindsets, but we also were a multilingual crew. So we were speaking in Russian and in English. And so, it was always fun, when, let's say I didn't know a word in Russian, and, we would have to think of different ways to explain a situation to us, or, or or basically we were just always helping each other with translations and making sure we all understood each other. But that added to the fun of everything, I think. And we really got along at the end. Just like any family living together for a long period of time, you have your ups and downs, and you have your heated discussions and then your loving moments as well. But no, we overall, I think created a really good crew dynamic, and I hope that.
Nice.
No, I think that we were very representative of how future crews might look like, and so it'll be a good sample set for researchers to take from, I think.
Indeed, yeah, because space is international, we know. But you are getting ready to go with a much smaller, something closer to home, like literally closer to home. It's going to be Utah instead of Russia. It's going to be for a different duration. And as well, it's going to be with the aerospace family that you know. So what kinds of, for you anyway, what kinds of other kind of differences do you see in the mission Series 21 and the one you're getting ready to go into?
Yeah, well, so MDRS, the focus of MDRS, the Mars Desert Research Station, is more to test out the operational aspect of an analog mission and to test out the mission planning aspect, really. Seeing, what worked well in the schedule and what didn't. Did the procedures for our extravehicular activities work out well? Did we have enough time to do what we wanted to do? What did we need to change? And things like that. It's like I said, it's more of the operational aspect of things and mission planning aspect of things, as opposed to what Series 21 was, which is more a study of how the human body psychologically and physically and physiologically changes due to isolated conditions. So that's the main difference between the two, because of course MDRS again is only a 2-week-long mission, and so you really don't see changes in a human body in just 2 weeks. So operational aspect and mission planning aspect of things versus, psychological and physiological changes types of things. But there are some similarities too, for sure. So we have, we're going to have a similar schedule. We'll have a wake up time, we'll have meal times, we'll have some workout times, scheduled extravehicular activities, data collection and analysis moments, things like that. And so the actual schedule is going to look very similar, and hopefully also very representative of how an actual astronaut will live and work in the future and currently.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for participating in this research, and to your team and stuff. And welcome home. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back. All
right, back to you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen and Ashley. So Ali, just a question. How do you think these analog missions are going to help us shape maybe strategy and policy in the future? I think this is like a whole unknown policy arena.
Yeah, I think as we start going to the moon and Mars, we not only have like just traditional space policy that we have like with the treaties for the moon, but we have a whole kind of an urban planning scenario to do for how we're going to live and work in the future. And that involves all different types of policies. There's group dynamics and interaction with like multiple different countries as well. So
yeah, maybe how are we all going to share the resources that are on Mars? You know, what do zoning laws look like on Mars? What do pet laws look like on Mars? Trevor, can you introduce our mission mascot here?
This is Goose. He's he doesn't pay any rent, so don't pay him any mind.
Great. Trevor, what are your thoughts on the future of policy and strategy for human exploration? Do you think that we're going to end up carving up the moon or Mars? Do you think it's going to end up being an open resource that we share, kind of like it is now?
I would hope I would hope it's a shared resource. I think we're going to see a couple of things either happen. I don't know in what order they'll happen, but I think we'll either see something like political, like a world event, or success from other countries, you know, jumpstart us to maybe change the direction we're going or accelerate where we're going with things. But I can also see new capabilities from maybe commercial that also, you know, accelerate some of our goals and objectives, and might also inspire what we're doing as a nation to do things maybe bigger or faster or sooner than maybe we had anticipated. So maybe instead of doing things like a decade out or two, maybe there's new capabilities that make us want to do things a lot sooner than that. So so to answer your question in short, I think we're due for something to happen that accelerates the pace at which we're moving.
Yeah, and you mentioned the commercial involvement in Mars. I mean, we've all heard inklings of commercial involvement in cislunar space, in the moon, and in Mars. Kristine, what are your thoughts? Do you think that commercial is going to lead the way?
It's hard to say at this point. You know, I would say traditionally that commercial follows the institutional and government space exploration. And you can see in the past the way that the government has kind of spearheaded what we do, particularly in human space flight, and commercial kind of follows along. But in this case, you know, it looks like it's almost the opportunity is right to flip that on its head, right? You have some space barons out here promising missions that the government even hasn't done yet. So I think anything's possible in this realm. I think, you know, traditionally we would see the government pave the way and commercial come in behind, but, you know, maybe not this time. Maybe we'll see commercial really make some milestones and have some firsts. And I think that's exciting. I think, you know, the whole point of having the government do space exploration is to, you know, provide missions that the commercial market can't support yet. But if the market can support it, might as well go and see what the commercial companies can do and really push the boundaries of what capabilities are out there.
Agreed, right. And, you know, I can see that tourism boom maybe coming. You know, we're already starting to see that government-led, commercial followed in the tourism industry that we have in space right now. And I could see that becoming something that's a thing for Mars, not just for low Earth orbit. What sorts of things do we think we have to pay attention to? Kristine, I'll ask you first, but then maybe Ali can weigh in. When it comes to safety and health, and just to mention to our listeners here, I will be, in fact, the health and safety officer for this mission. So these are all things that I'm thinking about. But for the health and safety, human safety, what are we going to have to do to make sure that our people, not only our astronauts, but maybe ultimately civilians, stay safe, stay active on Mars, and that we don't end up with some sort of an incident that gives bad publicity to the whole area of human exploration?
Sure. I think that one of the major things we'll have to take into account is the lack of easy return to Earth in some of these exploration scenarios. So, in the history of human spaceflight to date, humans have never ventured more than a couple days distance away from the Earth. So if you think about, missions to the International Space Station, to the moon, all of these missions, the astronauts, if something happened, they could return to Earth quite quickly in relative terms. But when you think about interplanetary missions to Mars, there's no quick return. So you have to really be prepared for in-field medicine, in-field repair of any of your support equipment that you would have for health and safety. So you really need to think about, it's almost a survivalist wilderness mentality that you only have what you bring and there's no easy way back. So you're on your own. And it's a whole different way of thinking about it. We've started to explore these types of things with missions to the International Space Station, where we've talked about, how can we do, some independent or crew-led autonomous health and safety things. But I think that really needs to be tested more in an analog environment such as MDRS going forward, so that once we really have that mission of record, we'll be prepared.
Yeah,
Great.
so in our mission coming up, we are going to test some different scenarios for crew autonomy and really try to evaluate how that works for us, including using a time delay and a texting capability for any mission support that we might need during the mission.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And for the folks watching too, that it does take, it'll be about 5 minutes at the period of time right now when we're going to be going there for light to get from Earth to Mars and then from Mars back to Earth again. So 10-minute round trip. If there's a major question or a major emergency, if you were on Mars, you'd be on your own. At the Mars Desert Research Station, we're going to have a similar delay put into our communications. And I wonder too, Ali, whether you can mention how isolated are we actually going to be from the rest of the world while we're out there?
How isolated? So, we're going to be in simulation. So we're going to be actively trying to stay in simulation. Hopefully any tourist type people try not to come and knock on our door while we're there. But I think we're going to be in Hanksville, Utah, which is a relatively small town. So I think there's some staff that sits off site that's available in an emergency, but otherwise we're going to be in the middle of the desert in this habitat that's been established. They've been established. They have the facility. There's a lot of logistical things that are taken care of by using the facility, and we just kind of have to fit into their operational rules and to kind of go back to leveraging that experience to help inform policy. I think like adhering to the operational constraints for EVAs and just the flight rules of the day-to-day, all of that informs planning for future missions as well.
Yeah, and Ali, you mentioned again the extravehicular activities. We're going to actually have to suit up and wait for the depressurization, right? And what
Yes.
other rules do we have, right? We have a rover. We have extreme limitations on the data we can uplink and downlink. What other sorts of constraints are we going to be adhering to while we're out there?
Yeah, so I think we're going to have the buddy system for EVAs and not leave a single person alone. And I think we're going to be constrained to some certain hours of the day. So we're probably not going to be able to conduct activities at night just based on some of the flight rules that exist for safety purposes right now. I don't know, Kristine, can you think of anything else? Any other big ones?
Yeah, I think that what Ali said really covers it. The EVAs that we have planned, we have a lot of technical content in there, but we also need to always be open to learning more about logistical things at the same time. So our EVA's objective may be a technical experiment equipment deployment, but we may learn things during that EVA regarding how operationally we can reach the location, how we are able to use the equipment at hand, how our suit is performing. So we'll always have a secondary objective in mind to really be open to learning more about the environment. So I think that all of the extracurricular activity that we have planned will have multiple objectives, and there will be a lot of things we can learn from each one.
So, yeah, we talked a bit about the isolation and the time delay. Trevor, I know that you're working on a lot of the virtual reality or augmented reality to help maybe the crew accommodate their experimentation while in isolation, or while we have a great degree of separation from the folks back home who are running these experiments. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So one of the things that we noticed was that after we achieved the immediate objectives for adapting augmented reality and virtual reality in the way that we had originally set out, was just how easy it is to find other uses for the technology. So one of the examples that I like to give is that for the mirror experiment, we need to find a place that has a lot of dust exposure and a lot of light exposure. So my team was able to adapt the technology that they had already developed for the other experiment sets to set up a simulation to be able to find where we think the most dust will be, but also be able to see the date and the time where the most lighting is going to be. So we'll be able to generate shadows using 3D map created from satellite data. So the bottom line is that yes, we came in with a set of experiments that we're excited to showcase augmented reality and virtual reality and how we can use it in the space domain for human spaceflight. But it was interesting to start to see all of the different ways beyond our initial plan of ways that we could use it.
Yeah, that's great. And this working with what we have, this innovating or adapting to the environment as it's there, all of this, I just makes me feel like I'm going to be Mark Watney right there at the Mars Desert Research Station. But Kristine, as the commander, how do you think we're all going to get along? Do you think that this isolation is going to drive us all nuts, or do you think that we're going to be pretty cohesive? I know you've done some similar analog missions in the past.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. In my past experience with the analog mission, I was at the sister habitat to MDRS, which is called the Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, or FMARS, and it's in the Canadian Arctic, near the North Pole. And my mission there was 30 days. So it's about twice as long as the mission that we're about to embark on. And in my experience, after a few days of everybody settling into their routines and really getting to know how the crew members operate, it tends to really just become comfortable. And obviously there are challenges and obstacles that will come up, and we'll have to really be tested on our patience and our ability to adapt and to understand each other and understand each other's reactions to different things that happen. But generally, I foresee that we'll be okay. I think that all of us here, everyone on the aerospace crew is a professional. We've all worked together for at least a year now, gotten to know each other. So in my opinion, I think we're really strong, and I think we'll be successful in not just our technical goals, but interpersonally. And I think we'll all be very good friends for a long time after this.
Yeah, actually, I've done some emergency medicine deployments, and one of the things that you find out is that you actually forge some really strong friendships because of the close quarters, but also just the working through adversity together, being in an odd situation together. So these are all fantastic people. I'm looking forward to it. Allie, tell me what you think Mars is going to be like in, say, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now?
Yeah, I hope that within 10 years, kind of going off of Trevor's VR augmented reality capability, I hope that we're really able to explore Mars ourselves from Earth. I really think there's a lot of advantage there. We can avoid some of the challenges to sending humans. And if we could just kind of invest in that area, I think we could do a lot. I'm hoping that we get some propulsion breakthroughs so that the travel time diminishes, and then kind of along the 100-year thing, I would like to kind of be like a Lost in Space family without getting lost.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Trevor, what do you think?
I really like what Ali said about advances in propulsion, because it's something that, you can't really plan for a big breakthrough like that. But at the same time, as soon as you start to go down that rabbit hole, you're like, oh my gosh, like there are a couple of TRL raising, projects out there, TRL technology readiness level projects out there for propulsion. And like Ali was hinting at, like it totally changes the game. So, we're talking about Mars and we're talking about the moon in right now, when this is being filmed, is 2022. And in a decade, like Ali's hinting at, if you get these propulsion breakthroughs that people are working on, but we're not, planning for, it does change the game completely. So I'm right there with her on that. That's one of the things I'm most excited about too.
Very cool. Kristine, what do you think?
Yeah, I would like to say that within our lifetimes that we'll be able to see our astronauts on Mars, or even commercial astronauts on Mars. So I'd really love to see that over the next several decades. Hopefully that will come to fruition. Another thing, is longer term, around, more of the 100-year out, the Mars Society, the organization that's the host of our MDRS facility we'll be going to, they really are proponents of terraforming and the whole Red Mars, Blue Mars, Green Mars initiative, where we would start to do human-made things to try to make Mars more habitable for humans. So that's something that I would really love to see that make progress in the next several decades too, in our lifetime, that maybe it will become more of a more habitable place for humans over the course of the next 50 to 100 years. So that's something that would require obviously lots of dedication, lots of budget, lots of technology development, but I think it would be something that really would provide sort of a backup plan to Earth. If we did have a sort of an issue where we would need to have a secondary place to live. So I think that's something that would be good for everyone.
Now, are we going to have Disney on Mars? That's what I would think. I mean, I could actually see it happening. And, to an extent too, I really do, to go back to a couple of things that the group has said here. This idea of the government leading, in some ways, I really feel like it's the government's role to be the infrastructure, because it's the infrastructure that allows the commercial entities to innovate and to bring us all these awesome new technologies. Maybe ultimately we could have a roller coaster in the low gravity of Mars, and that would be amazing to experience. And I also really strongly love the idea that Ali and I think Trevor also talked to about this virtual reality component, the ability for me or my kids or my kids' kids eventually to explore Mars from home, and to excite that level of engagement and involvement in the next generation. Because I think going to Mars in a lot of ways, and even right now, the problems that we have on Earth right now are going to be the problems of the future in Mars. And by trying to solve them for the problem of the future in Mars, we help solve them for ourselves on Earth. So it's not even just having a backup plan, which I think is always wise, but it's also a matter of satisfying that human need to explore, to see. I want to see Olympus Mons. I want to see I want to see the landscape out there. I want to be a part of that generation of exploration that I think is really coming forward. So 10 years, who knows? Maybe we have the beginnings of human habitation on Mars. 50 years, I really hope we have a more continuous presence, kind of like we do right now in low Earth orbit. And then in 100 years, I hope at that point, it's no longer, it's no longer a novelty. It's almost like, okay, now we just got to figure out the plumbing is clogged again, and now we need to get the plumbers out here to work and to let us live there almost like we live here. So who knows? It'll be an interesting thing to see. So yeah, so thinking through all of these future of Mars, right? I'm actually thinking more thoroughly about the very near future, as in the end of November when we all go out there. Kristine, can you explain what our Demo 1 mission really means? And then maybe you can give us just a quick list of the types of things that we're going to be doing there from the experimental side.
Certainly, thanks, Barbara. So our Demo 1 mission is the first all aerospace or all corporate crew to a Mars Analog Facility, MDRS. And the main primary objective purpose of our mission is to be a demonstration. It's for us to show that aerospace can execute this type of mission, that we have the capabilities in-house to cover all of the bases. So we want to make sure that we can cover logistics, we can cover staffing appropriately skilled crew, that we can come up with valuable technical experiments, and that we have the capability to bring that all together into an overall really valuable package as a total mission. So as a demonstration, I think this will really bring back to aerospace, to our leadership, that, hey, we can do this, that we can be successful at this, and we think we should continue to do this in the future. And another thing that it will bring is that the demonstration will also show some of our customers, including NASA, that we have a lot of the skills and capabilities that could help support them in their objectives with analog missions going forward over the next several years. So I think that the success of our mission will really be able to provide that example, and that we can build upon that going forward. And Allie maybe can add about that. She has a very good description of it where she talks about crawl, walk, run, about how aerospace should continue this in the future. So maybe Allie wants to chime in with that.
Sure. Yeah, I think if we can start out with these demonstrations that's like in the crawl phase, then kind of come up with a program to where we can do more and maybe directly tie it to customer objectives. I know the Artemis objectives report had recently come out, and so we're trying to tie even some of the stuff that we had planned to that new report to show how it's relevant. And I think we need to do the pioneering now through these analogs in order to be successful on those longer Mars missions. And so hopefully that's the run phase, and then hopefully aerospace as an FFRDC and our whole company is just filled with people with these skill sets that are relevant, and we can even be chosen for crew someday on these missions. Maybe it's commercial, maybe it's still government, but we'll see.
Right, and just to kind of as an outline, for example, as the health and safety officer, the things that I'll be paying attention to are obviously the physical health and safety of the crew, also a little bit of the mental health and safety of the crew. And to that extent, we have a kind of a chat function. I know when I text my kids right now, a 5-minute light time delay between the Earth and Mars is nothing compared to how long it takes them to get back to me. So we're going to try to implement that type of a delay in our servers that allow us to send and receive messages with our family, with our support crew back at home, to kind of get a sense for how that's going to affect our ability to feel that we're in touch, to get the information that we need. Second, I'm going to be looking at things like exercise protocols, and we're going to do just a very lightweight sort of protocol where we have 15 minutes a day, 3 times a day, where the crew is allowed to do any exercises of their choice. We have some equipment that we're going to try to use to see if that's appropriate for the confined space that's there, and basically summarize our experience with staying fit in a very small area with 6 other people around you, and no ability to say go for a long run or play a game of soccer or do some other of folks' normal fitness routines. So those are kind of the 2 experiments that I am paying attention to. Allie, I know in addition to being the XO, you're going to be doing some tool demonstrations and evaluation. Why don't you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, so Kristine and I will be carrying over some objectives from some field work that we did last summer, where we're testing out kind of the methodology and the concept for how a crew member might deploy a radiation sensor. Prior to doing any excavating in that area, you may want to take measurements of radiation at the surface regolith. So we're going to be demonstrating that, collecting some data, And then if we want to take samples of sites of interest, we also have a simple scoop and rake type thing that we can do, as well as some different types of collection sample bags for us to analyze at a later time.
That's great. And Trevor, I know you've already talked a little bit about the augmented virtual reality, but I don't know if you want to explain the types of EVAs that we're going to be doing with that augmented virtual reality.
Sure. So we've got a couple of EVAs on the docket, and a really key part of the entire set of EVAs is to build off of one another. So we have a 3D model of the mission area that we've gotten from Google Earth. So that's what we call our SAT version. So you use imaging from satellites and you create this 3D model, but that's low fidelity. So what we're going to be doing is each EVA that we go back out into the field, we're going to be using different examples of how you can capture a higher fidelity model, and then we'll stitch them into our virtual model of where we are, and then we will perform the rest of the project, and you'll see after the fact how we do that with augmented reality. It'll be great.
And I know we don't have Matt Evie on, but he is going to be taking care of the Green Hab. And Kristine, maybe you can just explain a little bit of what the Green Hab is, and also about the very exciting balloon launch that we're going to do.
Sure. So the Mars Society really is interested in long duration or colonization of Mars. So some of the things that they like to have in their habitat is things that will support the crew longer term on longer missions. And so one of the things at MDRS is a Green Hab, and it's a kind of a recycled water and growth garden facility. So it allows the crew to grow plants, and it can be for multiple uses, including mental ability to relax by gardening. It can be to have it as edible plants that you can eat some fresh greens, and it can even be as a way to help with the life support system with the recycling of the water and whatnot. So it's a multi-purpose facility, and Matt Evie will be our Green Hab officer. So he will be in charge of maintenance and upkeep on that facility while we're there. And also Matt is going to be in charge of deploying a weather balloon while we're there at MDRS. And so I think multiple crew members are going to be involved in doing a release of the weather balloon and then tracking of its telemetry data for as long as it's up in the air. So that will be an interesting thing to see. I know Matt said that it's not really been done before in a Mars analog environment. So we'll be able to see how easily we can do these things in spacesuit, what is easy, what is hard, and how to give lessons on that back afterwards. And then, yeah, just adding one more thing on the list there. One experiment that I'll be working on with Allie is there's a solar observation telescope on site also at MDRS. And so one of the things that we have planned for our mission is to do a daily sunspot count. So to go up to the solar telescope, do an estimate of the number of current sunspots, and that will give us sort of a space weather prediction capability. And so we're looking to test this out and see if that can advise the crew on whether or not it's a safe day to go on an EVA, or whether it's a highly active solar day in which maybe the crew should plan on doing indoor activities. So that's something that we'll be doing in our mission to see how we can easily wrap that into the daily activities and planning schedule and see how that will impact the overall mission timeline.
Wonderful. Okay, well, just as we finish up here, I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to talk about either the thing they're most excited about for this mission, or maybe something unusual that's about this mission. Or something that you just feel like you want to bring up in the context of this mission. I think I'll start by just mentioning that that one of the things that I think is kind of odd, or one of the things that I'm very concerned about, is food, right? I'm not excited about 2 weeks of astronaut food. So I've decided I am going to bring my sourdough starter. I'm going to spread it all out and dry it out and break it up into little dried out flakes. It's very shelf stable from there. And then I'm going to reconstitute it, and I'm going to try to make sourdough on Mars. So that's my contribution. Trevor, what are you excited about? What do you think are going to be the big obstacles, or what's unusual that you wanted to mention?
I'm excited to get out there. So I've never seen the inside of the hab yet, you know, and I know that there's a lot of facilities that we've been reading about out there since the beginning of the pandemic, basically. So I'm excited to see the facility and you know, and be a part of it and get a good system down that I know that I can sustain for the whole period and really see it go off without a hitch. I'm really looking forward to making sure the EVAs all work, because there's been just so much planning going into it. So I'm excited to see it all come together.
That's great. Allie?
Yeah, I was going to say getting that first EVA done, I will feel really excited after that. And then on the food thing as well, I'm bringing some dehydrated Martian salsa with us. So hopefully we can spice things up with our rehydrated salsa that I heard is really good. So hopefully for some fun along the way.
That's fantastic. And Kristine?
One of the things that I'm really excited about is to see the similarities and differences between the sister habitats. You know, not that many crews have been to the FMARS facility in Devon Island, so I'm one of a few that's been able to go to both. So I think it'll be really interesting to see the differences and the similarities. They were constructed in a similar manner, they're laid out in a similar way, but MDRS has been visited way more times and has many more additions. So I'm really interested to see that. And, you know, just as much as Barbara's into food, I'm into coffee. So one of the things that I'm excited about is figuring out what type of coffee I can bring and what's realistic to make there. So one of my firefighter colleagues here in Houston, I just started a coffee cart business in the last few months. So I've been experimenting with a lot of different recipes. So I think it'll be fun to see what is viable and feasible in the Martian environment. And I'll be planning to do a few tests.
Excellent, excellent. We're going to grow coffee on Mars, and then we too can say that we've colonized Mars. Well, thank you, Kristine. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Trevor. And obviously, thanks to the Center for Space Policy and Strategy and the Space Policy Show for having us on.
Well, that was fun. I'm almost jealous that they get to do this mission. Remember to look for us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to our newsletter, go to our website, csps.aerospace.org/space policy show. James Liggins is our technical director. Until next time, everyone.